Guys, today we're going to be talking about half kneeling windmills, your windmill base position, and everything else in between. So we've been programming a lot more half kneeling windmills recently, especially during this last winter, and it's a really nice movement. In fact, I think I probably like it better than a standing windmill for some reasons that we'll talk about. Why is it a good movement? Well, it's a really good diagnostic tool. It's really going to help you find your left-right imbalances, but it's also going to help you find not just your shoulder imbalances, it's going to help you find your thoracic mobility imbalances when you're twisting. So it'll really show you if one side is stiffer, and you can start working on that. It's really good for developing your in-between strength. So all those little positions that you might not get, even if you have a classic gym background, you're going to find that you have these little gaps in your strength from getting in between position A and position B. And this does a really great job of tying all that together. Like I said, it's very good for shoulder mobility, it's good for thoracic mobility, it's good for hip mobility, and it also is good for ingraining good patterns. It's a nice way to teach a hinge from a different position. The windmill base position is really useful. The windmill base or the open lunge shows up over and over and over again. It'll show up in your Turkish Get Ups. It'll show up if you're doing any kind of rolling or falling or getting up practice. It'll show up if you're doing any sort of grappling work. It's just one of those universal positions that's actually really important, but again, tends to be ignored in traditional gym work. It has a lot of similar benefits to the Turkish Get Up, but you spend less time on the ground. So if you work out outside in the winter like we do, sometimes you don't want to be spending 4 or 5 minutes lying on your back in the snow. So it has a lot of benefits of the Turkish Get Up, but you don't have to get all soggy. And then finally, it just feels really nice and it feels cool, and it's a movement that once people get it, they really enjoy it. All right, during your warm-up, there's lots of different ways that you can get people ready to do windmills and half windmills. And actually, if you run the warm-up in different orders, it can solve different problems. I'm going to run it in order I usually run it in, but there's also a pretty good argument for switching the order around, and I can talk about that as well. So the first thing you need to remember with windmill movements is they're going to be a combination of a thoracic twist and a hinge. So when I do my general warm-up, I'm going to go ahead and get those movements warmed up first before I start confusing people with anything else. So for the first bit, we're just going to do empty bodyweight stuff, so no need for a dowel. And we're just going to have people just do some classic standing hinges, empty Romanian deadlifts, so feet about hip width apart, just moving back and forth, shoulders back, keeping your back straight, just making sure everybody is comfortable hinge. You can start looking at people's back positions, making sure people are moving through their hips and not through their knees. Once you get a few of those, everybody's got their hinges in, you can start working on a thoracic twist, and you could do these in opposite order as well. And for these, you don't need to get too technical. Just make sure that people are moving through their upper body and not just moving through their lumbar spine. So I'll tell people, keep your belly button pointing forward. Obviously, it's going to twist around a little bit, but you want to make sure people think about starting the movement from up here. There's lots of ways you can just have your elbows and start twisting back and forth. So you're just twisting like that. Get everybody nice and loose and just really have them moving through the thoracic spine like Jill is. If you want to loosen up a little bit, you can get their hands loose and they can start flopping back and forth and just kind of let their hands hit and just get them thinking about this movement. All right. Once you've got that, then you can say, okay, now we're going to try to put them together. So we're going to put that hinge, we're going to combine it with the twist, and we're going to do an empty standing windmill. So the first thing you do is you get your members to pick a side. I say right side, and point straight up in the air. You can even look up in the air if you want to. You don't have to, but you can see your hand is pointing up there. Have them do another hinge, just like they were doing before. So just have them do a hinge. Good. All right. And you can see that Jill's naturally twisting into it. So just make sure that they're doing the hinge and they're doing the twist at the same time. And you can even show people. First, have them think about the twist. Say, all right, guys, I want you to twist. Good. Now I want you to think about the hinge. And we're just putting it together just like that. I usually will have them do 5 on each side, and right away people will start to notice that one side feels better than the other, so we'll have Jill try the other side. Both sides look pretty good with Jill. I've got a big left-right imbalance on mine, but Jill looks pretty solid. All right. Once you've got that, I like to bring the dowel in, and there's a number of reasons why I like the dowel, but once you show people how to do it with the dowel, it's going to help them with the kneeling position, and sometimes it helps them to remember which direction you twist in. So we can do the same thing, have Jill do a few hinges. Good. Seeing she has a nice straight back, that looks good. Have her do a few twists. Good. And you can either have her do this next bit with a bilateral stance, or you could have her take step 1 foot forward a little bit. I'll have her step her right foot forward just a smidgy, okay? Because we're gonna have her twist to her leading side. So her right foot's forward, so I'm gonna have her twist to her right side. Good. And well, I was just gonna have her do a few twists. Yeah, that's okay. Good. And then I was gonna have her do a hinge plus a twist. So same thing. And you can see now that we're doing the same position. But it's staggered, and you want to load this cue right here. You want to twist towards your leading leg, so whichever knee is forward, that's going to be your one. So you can have them switch on the other side, just have her do a few. So you got the twist plus the hinge, and they can see that you have some of the benefits of that. Yeah. And some people will like larger, longer dowels, some people like shorter dowels. After that, you can go ahead and keep the dowels up there and have people go down to a lunge position. And then we're going to get them into their open lunge position or their windmill-based position. So you're going to have the back leg. You're going to turn it so your knee's outward, your hip is open here. Okay, and now we can do the same thing. Have them practice a few hinges. Okay, have them practice a few twists. All right, then have them practice a few hinges and let them know they can bring their hips down a little bit. They don't have to keep their hips high. If they need to get their hips down a little bit, show them that they can move their hips up and down. They can bring their bum down to their heels. Good. Okay, and just like before, now in this case we see it's her left leg that's forward, so she's going to twist and hinge to her left leg, and have her try a few of these. And what this is doing is it's just getting her used to the movement so that when she tries it with the kettlebell, she has it imprinted. But with the dowel, it really helps you feel the twist and the hinge at the same time, and it really enforces that twist from the thoracic spine. After you have a few of that, you can go ahead and get rid of the dowel. And then, yeah, you can grab a kettlebell. We'll do some empty ones first with no kettlebell, and then we'll do it with the kettlebell. So let's stay down in that half kneeling position. Jill's going to get down in her half kneeling position. Okay, and she's just going to practice. So you see she's turned her knee out there. Now she knows which way she's going to twist. She's going to twist to her leading leg, and we're just going to have her do the same thing as before. Hand up. Imagine there's a kettlebell. Okay, and we're just going to practice a few. Good. So that's the same movement she was doing with the dowel, and now she has one hand up in the air, and you see it's easy to get confused on this, so it's good that she's trying it empty. All right, once we get the hang of that, then we're ready to actually start the half kneeling windmill. So there's lots of ways that we can get into the half kneeling windmill. The simplest version is just to start from the bottom, so have your members get down into their kneeling, half kneeling position, then have them open up. And then remember, whichever is your leading leg is going to be the same one that you're going to have the arm. It's also going to be the same side that you're twisting towards. So you can have them do a safety clean or a clean up to the front rack position. So Jill's going to do a clean. Just doing a half kneeling clean is actually a really nice movement, and you can use your hips more or less if you want to. Have them press it up into a nice stable overhead position. So overhead position looks good. And that's the first time they've done it, okay? You can just start it with a small range of motion and just have them slowly get their palm down. And then just spend some time in that position, just like when we do the Turkish Get Up. You don't want to rush your different positions while you're doing this, and then just have her come back up again, okay? Have them do it a few times so they get confident. Some people like to run their hand down their leg, some people don't. If you keep your hand further away, it will give you a more solid base. So I'm going to have Jill do it one more time. Good. And we can see that we do have that nice line from wrist to elbow to shoulder all the way through. So if I push down on this, I'm going to give her a little push. Okay. You can tell that she's really strong, and have her come back up again. Good. If they get tired, you can switch arms. You want to stay with the same arm? That's fine. Okay, cool. So now we can start adding range of motion. The key as we add range of motion is to make sure you keep lots of tension here. So I'm just going to have Jill shoot for elbow range of motion now. And one way you can do it is you can come into it. Good. And then come back up. Good. Okay. So sometimes you'll be working with clients and they're not going to be really creating the tension you want. They'll still kind of be loose in their shoulders. They're not really going to keep their tight core or their core tight. And then you're going to see that they're not always drawing a straight line to create stack positions as they come down. So there's a cue, which is the archer cue, and we'll do that with Jill. Jill has good form, but this is sometimes it's a nice way to build a little bit more tension and to help stack joints. So Jill's going to go ahead and clean it up in the air. And now from there, she's going to imagine that she's holding onto a bow right now, that she's going to shoot straight up in the air. And she's actively really going to pull through. And as she does that, she pulls tension, she locks her shoulder in place, and she makes this nice line right there. And she's going to come back up again. And it seems like a silly thing, but actually just giving people that image of the bow will really allow them to lock everything into place. So that's quite a useful cue if you find people are having trouble with tension. Last thing I want to talk about in terms of variety is you don't need to start from the ground. You can also add a little bit of complexity to the movement by making a half kneeling Turkish get down to elbow or to windmill. So this is something we do a lot in the winter. It's like a Turkish get up, but you start from the top, and your final position is the half kneeling windmill down to elbow or down to palm, depending on what you have. So we'll go ahead and give this one a go. So Jill's going to go ahead and clean this up and press it up. All right. And then she's going to lunge back just like that. She's going to open up her hips. Good. And then she's going to do the windmill just as we were doing. Nice elbow position. Good. She's going to come back up with control. And then she's going to stand. Okay. So you don't need to start from the half kneeling position. You can start from the standing position. It adds a little bit more benefit, and you have the lunging up and lunging down. So, like I said, we've been using the half kneeling windmill a lot recently, and one of the things that we found as we experiment more with falling and rolling and other movements is that there's a whole host of different positions that really get skipped out in traditional gym exercise. If you're working in the gym, you're going to be spending a lot of your time in a bilateral squat position, or sometimes in a lunge position or single leg squat position if you do some unilateral work. But actually what I found is realistically neither of those movements actually show up that much in real life, especially not when you're moving your body trying to get up and get down. So we've been spending a lot more time in some other positions. So we already talked about the windmill base, which I'll have Jill show you one more time. And this is just your lunge with your hips open. And like we said, this one's really nice because you're going to be in this position if you're trying to move a child. Let's say your kid's falling asleep in your bed, you want to move them over. That's probably going to be the position that you're on when you're in bed. So this is really good for picking up. And actually, there's a very good Atlas stone and sandbag pickup variation from this position. So that's going to be a really good position. It's also going to be a position you find yourself in a lot if you're doing forward or backward rolls, or you're learning how to roll into a fall. So this is really nice, and you want to make sure you're strong in this position. Another position we spend a lot of time in is the 90-90 or the quarta position. So from there, you're going to spend a lot of time in this position as well. This position is also nice because you will find yourself sometimes rolling in and out of it. It's also good to be able to transition from this. So from this one, if you were going to do a get up, you can transition into a double kneeling, or you can go into a half kneeling or windmill base position. And I find that especially with guys, if they're tight, it's hard for them to generate power from that position. So it's worth doing get up variations from there. The last one I want to talk about is the stagger stance, the B stance, or the kickstand squat. So for this one, Jill's going to go ahead and line up. And there's loads of variations, but today Jill's got her front heel lined up with her back set of toes. And you can keep your heels down on this one, but I find most people get a lot of benefit from allowing their heels to come up if they need to. So this is a staggered B stance squat. So Jill's just going to come down, and it looks like a small lunge. Okay, she can even get her back knee to tap the ground and have her back knee touch the ground by coming over a bit. Yeah, just like that. And all of a sudden in this position, this is a position that shows up over and over and over and over again, especially again when you're rolling, when you're getting up. And it's a really nice variation for building strength. And in real life, you're going to find yourself in positions like this much more than you might find yourself in a classic lunge position, or especially a bilateral squat. So we've been doing a lot of programming here, and I think we're going to continue because we're seeing a lot of benefits with our members when they work in these positions.